Hey everyone, it's Miss McConaughey. Today I want to do a little video on word problems or problem solving exercises where it's more than one step and sometimes you have to do two operations. For example, you have to add and subtract in the same problem to get the answer. So I thought I'd start with this one because it's a good one. We've got addition, we've got subtraction, we've got a table here that we have to read and understand. So I'll start off by reading the problem to you, and then I'm going to give you a few seconds just to think about the problem and what your plan would be. So it says, the table below shows the number of coats and sweaters donated during a clothing drive. You've got 3 days listed there, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. You've got a column for coats. So on Wednesday, 83 coats were donated. On Thursday, 58 coats were donated. And then on Friday, 71 coats were donated. Then we have a column for sweaters. So on Wednesday, 31 sweaters were donated. On Thursday, 14 sweaters were donated. And on Friday, 50 sweaters were donated. It's the utmost important to understand what this table is telling us before we even try to begin attacking the problem or trying to answer the question. Just kind of glancing over it, I can see that every day there were more coats donated than sweaters by a pretty significant amount each day if you look at it. So that's going to help me as I start to read and try to understand the question. And just think about some other things that you can maybe say about coats and sweaters being donated. I like to always just pause right here, think about the information I've been given before I even try to read the question that they're going to ask me. The question says, what is the difference between the number of coats and the number of sweaters donated during the clothing drive? I don't know about you, but as soon as I read this question, there's a word that pops out. If you said difference, then you were thinking just like me. We're going to be looking for a difference between coats and sweaters. So as I'm doing my analyze step, these are the things that I'm doing. I'm thinking about what the table told me, what kind of generalizations maybe I can make just out of this information. I read my question. I'm going to analyze my question really well. I know that difference always means subtract, but that does not mean that's all we have to do. Because if it's asking the difference between the coats and the sweaters, but as you can see, coats, there's 3 numbers, and sweaters, there's 3 numbers. I can't just pick 2 of the numbers to subtract, right? So this is when we start getting into our planning stage. I need to make a plan. I have to know the total number of coats that were donated, and I also have to know the total number of sweaters that were donated before I can find their difference. So as you make your plan, what you've actually done here is made the steps to solving this problem. The first thing I want to do is find the total number of coats. The second thing I want to do is find the total number of sweaters. And then finally, the third step, I can find the difference between those 2 numbers. So we talked about difference tells us that we're going to subtract. But what does total tell you to do? If you said add, then you are exactly right. So we've got a little plan of action here. I can now start to solve this problem. So first, let's find the total number of coats. And as I'm going, I just like to make little notes to myself. Right now, I'm dealing with my coats, and that just helps me keep my numbers and my thoughts in order. So on Wednesday, there were 83, Thursday, 58, and Friday, 71. And we know that there's several different ways that we can add these numbers. Today, I'm just going to go with the standard algorithm, and I'm going to line up my numbers. My ones are lined up vertically. My tens are lined up vertically to make adding easier. And we know we always start in our ones place. So I'm going to start by adding 3 plus 8. And I get 11. And then when you add one more, you get, that's right, 12. So I'm going to put down my 2. I'm going to put that 1 from 12 up in the tens place where it belongs. And now let's add these numbers in the tens place. So we're going to add 1 plus 8, and we get 9. 9 plus 5. That's right, 14. And then 14 plus 7. 21. If you got 21 in the tens place, you are correct. We have no other, we don't have anything in the hundreds place. I'm just going to put that 2 down here in my answer. So the total number of coats that were donated on those 3 days was 212. We have now done our first step. We said that step 2 was to find the total number of sweaters. So I'm going to take my number of sweaters from Wednesday, 31, Thursday, 14, and Friday, 50. And let's line those up according to their place values. And we're going to use the standard algorithm again to add these numbers. So in the ones place, I have 1 plus 4 plus 0. You are correct, that's 5. Now let's add our tens. We have 3 plus 1 plus 5. And if you got 9, you are exactly right. So we had a total of 95 sweaters that were donated on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. We are almost finished, but not quite. Because really, we haven't done the main question, right? It said, what is the difference between the number of coats and the number of sweaters? Before we could even get to our question, we had to do some steps. But now we can finally get to answering the question. Okay, so the total number of coats was 212. The total number of sweaters was 95. Notice I put my largest number on top. If I was to have put that 95 on top, we would be stuck right now. We would not be able to do that. I'm going to give you just a second to start working that problem out on your own. 212 minus 95. If you like to draw base 10 blocks to do subtraction, that's awesome. Do that. If you like to make strict diagrams, perfect. As you know, there's so many ways to solve a problem. And as long as you get the right answer, that's all that matters, right? I always tell my classes, everyone's brain works differently, and whatever works best for you, that's what I encourage you to do for your problem-solving process. I'm going to solve this again using the standard algorithm. So whenever I go to the ones place, I notice that there is a 2 on top. Well, if I've got 2 jelly beans and someone asks me for 5, can I give them their jelly beans? No. So that's a problem. But we know that we can just take a 10 from over here in the tens place. We're going to regroup that 10 into 10 ones. So when we put 10 ones with 2 ones, our number is now 12. Now we can do subtraction. So 12 minus 5. 7 is correct. and we've got our number for the ones place. So now I go to my tens place to subtract, and I see I have a problem. Whenever I took that 10 away, it left me with 0 tens. So if I've got a 9, I certainly cannot take 9 away from 0. So I can't just decide to go, well, 9 minus 0 is 9 and do that. Remember, top number minus bottom number. So I've got to do the same process I did when I borrowed earlier, or when I regrouped. So I'm going to regroup one of these hundreds. I'm going to take one of these hundreds and make it into 10 tens. So let's move those tens over here. And now I can subtract easily. 10 minus 9 is 1. 1 minus nothing is 1. I feel pretty confident with my answer, but it's always a good idea to check. In my class, we like to call it adding to check. So I'm going to take my answer, 117, and I'm going to add to it the number that I subtracted. And if I did my subtraction correctly, I should end up with 212. 7 plus 5 is 12. So I'm going to put down my 2. Carry that 1 up there to the tens place. 9 plus 1 is 10, plus 1 is 11. So I'm going to put down my 1, carry my 1, and 1 plus 1 is 2. Look at that, 212, 212. So we now have our answer of 117. If you notice, what they do with your answer choices is they assume that some people are going to forget to regroup, or they're going to make simple addition errors. And so, for example, they'll have 117, 127, 227. These are all answers that you're going to get if you miss a step down here, or if you don't regroup correctly. So just always be real careful and always double check yourself. Take your time. But we have now completed all 3 steps. We analyzed our problem, we made a plan, we took our steps to solve it, and then we even checked our work. Good job. See you next time. Miss you all.